All right, it says that we're live. I'm going to. Okay, people are saying it's live. People can see us. This is good. Yeah, and oh shoot, my page says that we are starting soon. That's not good. Is it live now?
Click.
Um,
You updated the.
And yeah, I updated the page. This is always so much fun. Let's see. Shoot, there we go. Okay, there's a little bit of a delay. Yeah, and I will figure out the video issues, either pilot the two videos or download them, cut them together, and upload. But we'll get whatever it is for replay. We'll get the videos worked out. But and seeing all the all right. Now I lost where I was. Well, first let's make sure. Yeah. I'm just gonna say we're back. And if people mention in the chat that they're having issues, you can just refresh the page, and work out. And seeing all. Okay, and I'm out of the chat. I'm just going to simplify and focus on talking. And Brennan, I'll let you ask relay the questions.
Yep, I'll monitor the chat. And if we need to, maybe we can just cut off your video feed to get more bandwidth on your end, and I can do the same.
Is the bandwidth pretty bad?
You get into weird laggy moments occasionally.
Okay. All right, we're going no video.
No video. All right.
At least for now. All right. That's always fun to deal with. Sorry about that, guys. So I want to talk. We talked about Pete Keen and just about how he made money from his book. He actually made a fantastic amount of money from his book at $30,000. I'm sure anyone happy to add that much in revenue. And I should also point out that that's not like some weird exception. I have a ton of these stories of people making that much money and a lot more. But the other thing that happened is he had this fantastic consulting pipeline because he wrote on a topic so closely related to the consulting that he was doing. He could have written about something entirely different, but because he wanted to do more work with payments and Stripe and Ruby on Rails, he wrote about that specifically. Now people see him as the go-to guy for that. And so if they have questions, any of that, they have an integration they want to do, and you just talk to Pete, and he can start to charge higher and higher prices because even though other people may, even if maybe it was something viewed as a commodity in the past, he doesn't have that issue because he's built up authority and he's built up a reputation in that space. And so if you have a budget and you want it done right, then you go with the guy who's written the book on that topic. And in this case, that's Pete. So his book is Mastering Modern Payments. If anyone wants to drop a link to that in the chat. The next guy I want to talk about is Brian Castle. And he wrote a book. Let me find the title of the book. He wrote a book called Design for Conversions. And this book, he put a lot of effort into it, launched well, and he didn't launch to the same size of audience or email list or anything like that as Pete did. And so he didn't have as big of a launch, but it still did really well. At the time, and so during the launch week, he sold 65 copies of the book for about $2,800 in revenue. And so for a side project, that's really great. The book has continued to sell and all of that. But immediately after launching the book, because this is a book about how to get better conversions with your software or with any of your designs, and so that's a valuable topic. And so right after he launched this book, he got 2 consulting projects that were together worth about $30,000, and that came as a direct result of him writing the book. So I want to really hit home that books are fantastic for either making revenue on the side to even out, the income roller coaster or something like that. That's what I did. Then they're great if you want to put more effort into it to becoming a full-time gig. That's the route that I took, where I just want to write and sell books and I wanted to get out of freelancing. But they're still fantastic if you want to be seen as the go-to guy for a particular topic, and you want to stop having to search for consulting leads all the time. If you want a pipeline that's goes out 6 months or a year, where you're turning away projects that you're not interested in, then writing a book on a topic that you're an expert in and you want to consult in is going to let you charge what you want, and people are going to say, oh, we should hire a designer to make this, convert at a better, at a higher rate. Who should we hire? Well, Brian wrote the book Designed for Conversions. Let's hire him. That sounds like a safe bet. So not only can you make money off of, selling a $39 book, but you can also make way more money off of the consulting end of things.
Mind if I jump in real quick?
Yeah, please do.
Okay. So you guys know that I've written a ton on how, with my agency, we did a lot of these seminars to kind of generate leads, basically, for us. And the underlying kind of reason for doing that was we were able to, I didn't really know how to phrase it at the time, but I'm a little better at that now. We were able to deliver value at scale. So traditionally what would happen is you get, like, let's say somebody contacts you and says, you're a designer, I need a website designed, can we talk? What you need to do is you're not just negotiating what needs to get done, but you're also trying to sell the prospective client that you're legitimate, that you know what you're doing, that you're reliable, that they, there's a good, that they like you, basically. You need to convince them to like you. What we would do is, because we had such a big, we had high overhead running the agency, so we had to bring in a lot of work. So we couldn't do these one-on-one conversations to basically pitch ourselves in a way, like, it would be too hard and too, it wouldn't be worthwhile enough to do that over and over and over again. So we started doing a lot of these kind of in-person seminars where it was kind of the same thing, just we're talking to 20 people at once, and we're talking, giving a 1-hour talk to 20 people. What we're doing through that is doing the same kind of like early sales work, right? Like convincing them that we know what we're talking about, building up that kind of rapport between us and them, and then we would then be able to go on and ultimately, like I've closed 6+ figure deals in 15 minutes because we would be spending the time negotiating the statement of work and not actually selling our abilities as an agency. So the whole idea of like creating a book, let's say, is basically the seminar model, but like on steroids, right? Like your scale is so much higher, and your reach is so much greater that you're able to do that same thing, and that's what people like Brian and Samuel have done, which is, it's very, for a lot of potential clients, for them to go in and say like, I need somebody who knows UX, let me go and like do some keyword searches to find that. That's a very high risk thing. Like reaching out to a random person who says they're a UX designer and saying, can we talk about a project, that's risky and it's also time intensive. Whereas somebody like Samuel, who's literally written the book on user experience and onboarding and everything, he can provide this, which is a low barrier of entry for a prospective client to go in and kind of get into Samuel's head and see, does Samuel align with kind of the, is he in line with kind of what we need? And if so, my total risk exposure is what, like $40 or whatever his book costs. And then if they like what he has to say and agree and are nodding their heads throughout the throughout the whole book, at the end, they're going to be the type of people who say, hey, Samuel, can we talk about, like, yeah, you've shown us enough about user experience, but we really need a master like you to actually apply your knowledge, not to a general thing like a book, but to a specific problem, which is our problem, and that's how consulting engagements are sold. So yeah, that's my little injection.
Yeah, and because just like you said, so much time in setting up consulting deals and all of that is convincing them that you're credible, convincing them that you're the right person to do the job, and that you can get it done on time and all of that, and that takes so much time. And so if they came to you already convinced that you're the one person they want to do this job, like you said, Brennan, you put together this consulting deal in not very much time, because it's just deciding on the rate and the time frame and the exact scope of the project. There's no convincing them over whether or not they should do the job, and that's an amazing place to be.
Yes, I agree. And if you want to spend your time as efficiently as possible, the last thing you want to be doing is spending all of this potential billable time convincing people.
Right, on a one-on-one basis. Let's try to convince
Yep.
50
yeah, you
or
want to
100
convince at
people or
scale.
1,000 people.
Find things that you can do at scale, even when consulting, right? Like, you don't want to spend all your time persuading prospective client after prospective client.
Yeah. Yep. Lead gen for consulting at scale. It's called a book or a training course. Let's take some questions. I think that would be a good way to go. We have a few that were pre-planned, but if any, or not pre-planned, submitted in advance.
So one question early on, and I forgot who asked it because I refreshed the chat screen, but somebody was asking about how do you determine what to write on. I think since a lot of us in this chat room are consultants who are presumably hired by clients to do some sort of specialized work, that's a good starting point. But
I think I don't think that's a good starting point. I think that's a fantastic starting point, and maybe the starting point. You can write on something that is, I would pick something interesting in that field, because if you write a technical book, you're going to want to keep updating it. You're going to want to, continue working in that field. So make sure it's something that you could see yourself working on years from now. If you're writing about something brand new, then you might want to, make sure it's going to have some legs and stick around for a little while. There's value in writing about the JavaScript framework. A great topic to write on. I also think that, like going back to Pete Keenan as an example, he could have written about setting up, pipelines for Ruby on Rails, and that's more narrow, but still really hard to write a book about, and really daunting. But so he narrowed down both sides of it, where he said, okay, we're talking payments for Ruby on Rails on one side, and it's just for Stripe on the other side. So he's not writing about Authorize.net or any of these others. He's getting really, really focused. It makes the book much easier to write. It means that going to get much more focused. Like, let's say you know how to do Authorize.net integration. So you write about that, then you're going to get consulting offers for that. You might just end up doing a bunch of consulting gigs. Write on something that is something that people pay for, ideally something that people already pay you for, and yeah, there's all kinds of good topics around that, but generally the more specific you make it, the better. Yeah. Let's see. Is there another question that we want to take, Brent?
There's a bit of lag. There's been a few really good questions actually. One from Ruben that I like is, how long can you expect sales to last? Basically, are you going to have this upward spike and then kind of need to keep writing more and more, or can you bring in long-term income? So that's a question. I don't know if you want to tackle that.
We'll just work through it. So based on that, if you do a good launch for your book, then you can see this huge spike in one day, and that's excellent. And I highly recommend going down that road. What will usually also, or almost always will follow that, is a huge drop, to the point where the first day you might do, let's say over the course of a week, you might do 80% of your revenue for that week in that launch day, and then 15% the next day, and then 3%, and 1%, 1% type of thing for a launch week. So it's going to drop off really, really quickly. And for a long time, I thought, oh, that's too bad. That's just the way the book was, or that's just how that industry is, and it'll continue selling. And they always level off at some amount. Whether it's $500 a month or $5,000 a month, it's still a solid revenue. One thing that you can do, keep updating it, keep putting work into it, and keep promoting the book. And actually, you could turn just one book into a full-time job and a full-time income. So there's a designer who's inspired me a lot. His name's Sasha Grief, and he lives out of Japan. They did, they launched it, had a really successful launch, took a little bit of a break, and then they've just been improving the book and working away on it, releasing new things as the language is changing pretty rapidly, because it's still Meteor's not at its 1.0 release yet. They've just been improving the book, and every time they put out a new version or release some new stuff or write a new guest post, it makes them more money. And so that book in the last year has made $250,000 and split two ways. $125,000 each is not bad. And so they just work on this book maybe 5 to 10 hours a week now. They make sure that it continues to sell, and they've effectively made a full-time income off of this one book. So the tendency is to think that you're done and just let the book sell itself, and it will, but only at a fraction of what it did at launch. But really, if you continue focusing on it, continue promoting it, then you can have a full-time income from it. So, yeah, those are all good things. Let's take one more question. You have one, Brennan?
Yeah, so a question that came up from Beth is around, she's kind of got two questions, kind of both related, on quality. So the first I consider more of a technical question is, quality of grammar, spelling, all that. That's, you just hire an editor to do that for you. But then there's the bigger question, which is kind of tied into the whole expert question of, well, what if you don't feel confident that you're capable of being an expert on a certain topic, right? Like, how do you overcome that hurdle? And what if people buy your book and end up saying, like, this is BS, like this isn't I knew this going into it, and then you're kind of afraid that they're going to then go and, like, ruin any social credibility you had, or for that product.
Yeah. So on the quality control, you ask friends. People and that kind of thing. Um, People will criticize your work, but they won't go out of their way to like badmouth you or anything like that. So even if you put out a book that someone doesn't like, that you want the book to actually advance your career. And so the best thing to do is find people who you trust who will give you honest, direct feedback about the book. Um, and when you do that, then you'll have you can know that it's a good book. If you're writing a design book, get other designers to give you real feedback about it, and don't just get people who are going to say, "Oh, it's a nice book, well done." Get them to push back, and uh, we had a 7 edition came out. We ran it by a bunch of people and got lots of great feedback. And then even after we released it, we were in touch with a designer at Apple who actually worked on a lot of stuff for iOS 7 and wrote a lot of the human interface guidelines. And he went through the book like with a fine-tooth comb, and he pointed out, he probably had 2 pages of notes on the book of things he either thought we could say better, or maybe he somewhat disagreed with it or any of that. And then also, just keep trying to improve and put things out there. I wouldn't worry that you're going to get, bad mouthed or blacklisted too much. Yeah, let's see. I want to talk about a couple quick things on, actually writing the book, because that's something that's really hard for people, especially when you're doing it on the side. So what I would say is work on it every day. This is something I had going for a long time, of writing 1,000 words a day, and that's just how you get a book finished. It's not by like sitting down one weekend and pumping out 5 chapters. It's by making slow, consistent progress every day. And I go into that a lot more in Authority. But the next thing is, and we talked about this a little earlier, is to focus on a niche that's really closely related to the consulting and the freelancing that you want to do. So the tighter you can focus your audience, the better everything's going to be for you. So don't consult on one topic and write a book about an entirely different topic. You will regret that decision later, because you won't maximize you won't maximize all of your effort. And then the last thing is that I would say use tiered pricing. That's basically where, and I'll show you some in just a minute because I use it with Authority. But sell just the book, and then in addition to that, add higher packages that have some other things like, what would an example be? So for my book, Designing Web Applications, I sell just the book for $39, and then for $99 I have the book plus videos plus some more tutorials, and then finally for I have sample code and more video tutorials and all this stuff. And because different people will buy at different rates. Someone who's struggling financially but wants to learn will pick up the $39 package, is buying for his team. Any of that will do with tiered you give them as many examples as possible, so you try to do work for them. And so what that means is the base package is for people who value their money more than their time, because maybe they're not that highly paid. Their time more than their money, maybe because they're working with a team, they have a company budget, that kind of thing. And so you give people those options, let them choose. And the first time I did it for the Epson handbook using tiered packages doubled revenue. And the second time I did it, I tweaked the models, tweaked my pricing a little bit, it tripled revenue. And it's basically every time I've done it since then, I've made roughly 2.5 to 3x what revenue would have been. I don't know of many other tips or tricks that have such a huge impact on revenue. So those are a handful of the things that if you're thinking about going down this road of self-publishing, then you really should check out Authority, because we've talked about a little bit of stuff here in this call, but I think that there's if you implement just one of them, it's going to be worth $50, $100, or $1,000. Like, if anyone with even a small audience outline on how to do that effectively in Authority, and the difference that he made was probably well over $25,000 just on in that way. So what we're going to do with Authority is there's a link below the video, and if you want to pick up a copy of it, then what I would say is click that link. It's got a little code added onto the end of it of freelance. And so what that'll do is it'll take you to the Authority sales page. There's even a case study from Pete Keen, right after he released prepayments for his book. So go through that, and then because I like Brennan and Brennan likes you guys, there's a 20% off coupon, and that's the freelance coupon that's in the URL. So it doesn't change on the sales page, but if you click any of the buy buttons, a little modal will open up, and you can see that the top package you'll save $50 on, and the middle package you'll save $20, and just the book you'll save $10 on. So it's 20% off all those packages. And let's just, I guess we'll talk through a few of the things that you'll get in there. So first, there's an interview with Brennan that he and I recorded about his self-publishing career and how it shaped his product business and all of that. There's stories with all kinds of people. Michael Hartle wrote a fantastic technical book that I'm sure if there are any Ruby or developers in the audio.org, so he gets into all kinds of numbers and details about how he wrote really the most popular Ruby on Rails book there is. And Josh Kaufman talks about traditional publishing. Just all kinds of great interviews in there. I've got tutorials on doing workshops. And then as far as some really practical things, I want to help you uh, get your book out there with the least effort as possible, or at least make it as easy as possible so that you can actually put in the work and get it done. And so we've included things like a designer with not that much work, because you can use all of our templates as a starting point. We have yeah, that's basically what's included in Authority. We're going to be running this discount on Authority for 24 hours. So tomorrow at about 2 p.m. But before about one more story is Samuel Hulk. Wrote a book on user onboarding, and
Hey, can you guys hear me? I can, if you guys can hear me, I think I know where Nathan was going with the story, and I'd be happy to, not to steal his thunder, but to complete it, since it looks like he dropped dropped from the call. If you guys can hear me, say something in the chat, and I will go ahead. Let me know. There's a bit of a delay, so can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me? Anybody? Cool. Okay, you guys can hear me. Okay, let me. I think I know where he was going, and that's with Samuel Hollick. And I actually wanted to talk a bit about what's really cool, because Samuel's a friend of mine, so I know a bit about how it's affected his consulting business, and the effect has obviously been in a very positive way. And this kind of ties into the question that I think Adi had asked. Adi, I don't know if it's Adi or Adi, but basically the idea of, like, do you write for, like, who's the audience, right? Is it potential clients, people who hire people that, like you, or is the audience your peers or people who want to get to a certain level that you're at? And let me first address the second part, which is basically the peer issue. Like, what if you're not confident enough? Say you're a designer. What if you're not confident enough in your ability to write a book on design? What I would focus on would be, first, the realization that expertise is a relative thing, meaning, yeah, Waterloo, the smart idea. Expertise is relative, right? So there's no such thing, I think at least, in kind of like an absolute expert. Maybe there is, actually. But for the most part, it's not true, and it's not true in a teaching sense. And I like to, I used to do a lot of Ruby on Rails training back when I had my agency. And the thing I learned about that was, it's been so long for me since I've gone and set up a new Rails application. It's been like, what, or since I've had to learn how to do that. It's been years. So when I went and tried to teach new people how to do that, like I fell flat on the ground. I didn't know how to do that. Um, so I kind of floundered on that. And what I learned back then was that you just want to be a few steps ahead of the intended target audience for your product. So if you're writing a book on design, you're not probably looking for, you're not going to write an academic treatise and expect that novice designers are going to buy it and get anything out of it, get anything valuable out of it. I like the idea of, find a way to, I think Nathan might be back, by the way. Nathan, I was just picking up your story on Samuel, if you can hear me. I was kind of on a
Hey,
tangent.
Brennan, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm finally back.
I tried filling in the blanks. I didn't actually talk about Samuel at all. I'm talking about, do you sell to peers or your potential client base? But with my little intermission said, why don't you take the reins again? Talk about Samuel.
Uh, so I realized that I was talking for a little while even after like Google cut out entirely. And so did I talked about Samuel or did that make it through or not?
Not really, at least not on my end.
All right, sorry guys. It's always frustrating when that happens. I'm not really sure why everything failed there, but hopefully things are coming through better now. Um, all right, I think. Oh, so I'll talk about Samuel a little bit quickly because I may have talked about him twice now. So Samuel Hulk wrote a book called The Elements of User Onboarding. After reading Authority, it was quite a success. Nice narrow topic. He didn't just write about all of UX design or all of design. Instead, he wrote on how to have a great onboarding process for your new users who sign up. Um, and so that book did really well. $37,000 in revenue, and so much more revenue in from consulting. And so he's just done a great job of continuing to promote this book. It continued to sell well, and he has a fantastic consulting pipeline, all because of this book. And actually, he recently got asked to speak at a conference put on by 500 startups, which is, it's just this high-profile conference with lots of great people speaking there. And I don't think Samuel would have been invited if he hadn't written this book and built up authority on this topic and become well known for it. So he did all of that after reading Authority. One of the other things that I included in Authority is a whole bunch of case studies. And so, since the book's been out for a year, we went through and wrote, all these case studies of people who have done really well with their books. And these range from people who have made, maybe a few $1,000s all the way up to people who have made $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 and more. And there's another case study coming out soon of someone who's made like $150,000 off of their book in, how long has it been? 4 months, something like that. There's just some incredible stories, and I guess the whole thing that I'm getting at with all of this is if you build an audience and start teaching, then you're going to have amazing things that are possible. Like Brennan, this is a story I want to share. We were talking about going to MicroConf Europe last year, and we're going through everything, and you said that
And Nathan, if you can hear me, think we lost you. Okay, he's going to reconnect again, I think. I can kind of pinch hit again. So, he was going to talk about MicroConf Europe, and there was. I wanted to go. I'd never been to Prague before. He wanted to go. My wife wanted to go, and we realized that we've both done a lot around audience building. We both had a lot of kind of experience and frankly authority in having done that firsthand, and we knew that we had a lot of people that we knew in Europe who were they were always emailing us, asking questions. Same sort of people. Like there was a lot of overlap, asking us questions about how to get into audience building and how to build up kind of authority so that you can then sell consulting or sell products or whatever it is that you're selling. So we ended up doing a in-person all-day workshop in London, and the revenue from that actually covered both of our mutual trips overseas, along with staying in London and then going down to Prague and paying for the conference and everything. So that was really helpful for us, and it provided a tremendous amount of value for our kind of mutual audience, I guess. And it was really successful, and I think that's what he was going to talk about. So again, he had the plan. I'm improvising on the spot. So hopefully that makes a bit of sense in terms of that. But it's powerful in that you can come up with ways that you can provide value when you need something done. So case in point, my good friends Amy and Thomas, they wrote a book on retinification or retinifying websites, and I think they used the proceeds of that to fund their kitchen remodeling. So, Thomas had built up through blogging primarily and through a lot of open source work an audience of people who manage websites, and he was able to kind of over time build up this email list of people who were interested in that, and pretty big Twitter following and so on, and that allowed him to get into selling this book on retinifying your website, which new technology. He had written some blog posts about it, but he didn't really ever commit anything to like a start to finish guide for how to retinify your website. He danced around that subject a lot on his blog, so we just basically created the guide, sold it for I think $30-40 or something, and it funded a lot of their he released I think right around when they bought their new house, so it helped fund a lot of that. So I don't see Nathan back, unfortunately. So hopefully that was. I'm sorry about all the issues technically. I don't know if you guys have any last-minute questions. I don't know if Nathan will be able to get back, but we're a little over an hour now, so it's probably time to get going. But if anyone has any questions for me, I know I'm just the supporting host, the co-pilot. But if you have any questions for me around either Nathan and his book or just anything in general, I'm happy to help. Cheryl, totally different. authority